Around the same time as I was beginning seminary, I was also employed with the Imperial County Office of Education in the alcohol and other drug use prevention programs. It happens to be where I met my wife, but part of my orientation to the job required me to attend 6 meetings of any 12-step program. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, whatever. And for no reason in particular, I chose to attend Al-Anon. And Al-Anon, if you do not know, is a 12-step program for friends and families of alcoholics. As a seminarian, I was struck by the simplicity and clarity of 12-step spirituality, how it can be practiced by anyone, regardless of their religious upbringing or none. I also noted how these 12-step programs articulate their public relations policy. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Listen again. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. And so I immediately began to wonder what it would be like if our churches adopted a similar approach to evangelism. Our evangelism and outreach policy is based on attraction rather than promotion or manipulation. Keeping in mind that each gospel tells a different version of the events of Easter morning, we read in Matthew chapter 28, verse 1, how Mary Magdalene and the other Mary arrive at Jesus' tomb very early in the morning on the day after the Sabbath. And this is why we worship on Sundays, not on the Sabbath, which is Saturday. There they encounter an angel who rolls away the tombstone and uses it as a perch. The angel dispatches the 2 Marys, saying, "Go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead. And he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him." Now, rushing away from the tomb to share this great good news, they suddenly encounter the risen Jesus, who echoes the angel's message, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Now, the final verses of Matthew 28, 16 through 20 reveal to us that the women successfully delivered that message. We know this because, as verse 16 reports, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. Now, it would have been more accurate if the verse read, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain to which Jesus had directed the 2 Marys to direct them. But it's sort of an awkward sentence, I agree. The next verse is curious. Verse 17 says, when they, the 11, saw him, the risen Jesus, they worshiped him, but some doubted. What's with that? I'd point out that the 2 Marys do not seem to have experienced that same doubt when they were greeted by the angel or by the risen Jesus. which I think we can interpret this way. Women are always quicker on the uptake than the men. The Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it. Anyway, from the way verse 17 is rendered, we'd rightly presume that a few of the disciples were convinced that they were in the presence of the risen Jesus, but some of them were not quite as sure. In the original Greek, the phrase, "but some doubted," is from the words hoi de anastasin. And that word hoi, H-O-I, that Greek word, can be translated either as some or as they, which allows two very different translations of the passage. One, either they, all of them doubted, or some, but not all of them doubted. Either translation is equally plausible. In fact, a recent update to the New Revised Standard Version has changed the translation from "some of them doubted" to "they doubted." Whichever the case, whether all or some of the 11 remaining disciples hesitated to believe what they were experiencing, one thing is absolutely certain. They had enough faith, maybe barely enough faith, to trust what the two Marys had told them. And they went to the mountain in Galilee, hoping that they would meet the risen Christ there. And that is surely good news. Because the risen Christ is not going to be deterred by the doubts of his followers. Bishop William Willimon says, "We can be thankful that Christ does not wait until we are full of faith and cleansed of all doubt before Jesus comes to us and utilizes us in his great move into the world." From this mountain and in the midst of these worshiping/doubting disciples, Jesus commissions them to go to all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the triune God and teaching them to obey everything that he has commanded. Now, the Greek word right there for nations is ethne. And ethne, biblically speaking, doesn't apply to the Jewish people. It applies to people who are non-Jewish. And so it seems there that Jesus is sending them beyond the Jewish nation. But Acts 1:6 records that Jesus sends his disciples to be witnesses in all Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria, and to the whole world, meaning all people. And we certainly know that Jesus' disciples did carry this message both to their Jewish brothers and sisters and beyond. While these final words of Jesus are often called the Great Commission, I wouldn't be surprised if some of your Bibles say that, notice that Jesus himself never called it great. Keep that in mind. Great or not, throughout the AD age, it seems that only one aspect of this commission has been overriding: the emphasis on evangelism. Think about it. Aren't those evangelists who are considered to be the most effective those who, a la Billy Graham, convert multitudes of people that they might be saved and baptized in the name of Jesus? But the other piece of Jesus' prime directive has not seemed to have held the same importance, except maybe for the first 300 years after his life, death, and resurrection. Before Christianity was adopted as the official religion of the Roman Empire. That was in the year 313. The missing piece is the twin directive that Jesus gives. He says, go make disciples. It's not just baptizing. Go make disciples, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. 1, make disciples. 2, teach them to obey what I've commanded. Ergo, a disciple is one who is shaping their lives according to the teachings of Jesus. The lack of emphasis on that part of the Great Commission led Dallas Willard to coin the phrase, the Great Omission. By this, he meant that while there were many professed Christians, these same Christians can, and I quote, forever and never become actual disciples. Willard writes, a disciple is a learner, a student, an apprentice, a practitioner. And so disciples of Jesus are people who do not simply echo certain beliefs about him as their own, but who apply their growing understanding of life in the kingdom of God to every aspect of their present life. Listen again to Jesus' final instructions, and because I want us to hear it afresh, I'm going to read these instructions as they are rendered in a new translation. It's an indigenous translation of the New Testament, the First Nations version. All authority of the spirit world above and the earth below has been given to me, Jesus told them. So now I am sending you into all nations to teach them how to walk the road with me. You will represent me as you perform the purification ceremony with them, initiating them into the life of beauty and harmony represented in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. You will teach them all the ways that I have instructed you to walk in. I love this rendering of Jesus' words. I'm sending you to teach them how to walk the road with me, initiating them into the beauty and harmony represented in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them all the ways I've instructed you to walk in. All the ways that Jesus has instructed them to walk in begin way back in Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, if not just a little before. Now, perhaps you, like me, are shocked, maybe even distressed by the militancy emanating from some corners of Christianity these days, where the adjective Christian seems synonymous with an absolutist opposition to abortion, loudly vilifying wokeness, taking over school boards, denigrating immigrants, banning books, and dehumanizing those who are LGBTQIA, and not just them, but their allies. It is not, my friends, that such issues are unimportant for Christian ethical reflection, but that these extreme positions are now become a litmus test, completely divorced from the ways that Jesus taught his earliest followers to walk in. Perhaps you'd also agree with me when I say that this overheated rhetoric is itself incompatible with actually doing everything that Jesus commanded. Especially that one commandment that Jesus himself did call great. In fact, he called it the greatest. To love God with everything we've got and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. That greatest commandment, my friends, is way, way different than the notion that our only obligation is to love the sinner but hate the sin. That is not biblical. Madeleine L'Engle, the author of that wonderful children's book, A Wrinkle in Time, it's a good book for adults too, she once pointed out that we will not draw people to Christ by loudly discrediting what they believe and by telling them how wrong they are and how right we are, but only by showing them a light that is so lovely that they will want to know with all their heart the source of it. It's a powerful quote. But I fear in L'Engle's words we discover our own failure to pattern our lives after the teaching and example of Jesus. If our lives were as beautiful and as loving and as gracious and as outward serving as Jesus taught, I do not think we'd have as much trouble as we do attracting people into our church communities. And also revealing the very great contrast between that combative version of Christianity that I just named and the more faithful, life-giving discipleship that Jesus actually taught his disciples to walk in. And so, friends, as I've learned in Al-Anon, we cannot fix what we think is wrong with those Christians by telling them how wrong they are. We can only focus on our discipleship, our own desire to reflect the beauty and wonder and grace of Christ Jesus, so that our words and our actions radiate a life that is so lovely that others will want to know the source of it. And friends, remember, whatever doubts we harbor, whatever limitations we feel we might have, we are still sent out. Just like those 11 disciples on the mountain with Jesus. Because it is not the doubts that we have that matter most. It's the faith that we do have that can make a very great difference in the world. Amen.